This week on the Rouge, White, and Blue, we will be talking about the end of an era, Chris Jones being fired in Edmonton. We will be talking about, some other things as well. Coming up next on the Rouge, White, and Blue. Hi, and welcome to the Rouge, White, and Blue, a Shotgun Sports Network production. My name's Oz Davis. I'm the co host of the show. Joining me, as always, is my co host, Joe Pritchard, to whom I ask this week an obvious one, Joe. How are you doing? Are you doing better than Chris Jones?
I'm employed. I didn't have dinner. I didn't have dinner on Delta this week. Although that sounds fun, in reality, it means your career is basically over. So,
Mm.
yeah, I'd say I'm doing okay.
Wow, cutting right to the chase on that, huh?
hmm
Okay. All right. Because yeah, that is eventually where I wanted to get to. Is this the end of his career? Uh, I was just thinking about this in retrospect today, and I believe that this first full season of the Rouge, White, and Blue took place the year Edmonton won the Grey Cup
No, it was the year after.
with
Our first couple of episodes were around that,
right. We came
and
in near the
before we hit
playoffs.
episode 5, he had been moved to
Right.
Saskatchewan. So,
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's what I was going to say next. Then he goes to Saskatchewan. And in his second year, so this would have been 2017, gets into the eastern half of the playoffs, the eastern bracket, and loses in the Eastern Conference final by what, four, I think it was.
yeah, it
However,
wasn't much.
yeah, however, 18 points of that was unanswered, right? Or was it 18 or 16? Something like that.
Yeah, they came
they
from way
scored, yeah,
behind, scored a whole
right,
bunch of points, but couldn't hold on.
right. They took the 3-0 lead, and then they went down the rest of the game, scored 18 in the fourth, and lost like 25-21, 24-21, something like this. In any case, we might have had, that was the closest we've come, certainly in the era of this show, maybe in the 21st century, to getting that all Western Grey Cup final. Uh, and then, of course, the year after that, best year with the Riders, they went 12-6. They lost to your Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the playoffs that year. And I guess this is where things took a left turn, right? Looking at the man's bio today, I was just thinking, this is another guy whose football career was ruined in Cleveland. You know, he took that job at the Cleveland Browns in 2019 as some sort of assistant defensive coach. That was the year when Freddie Kitchens was the head coach, for anybody who follows the NFL, for He was coach for about 15 minutes. And then 2020 hits. He's not working. He is OOF, out of football. Comes back in 2021 with a high school team, this local South Pittsburgh high school team. Coaches there, has some nominal role with the Argos. Comes back with Edmonton and just nothing, nothing. To be frank, this is a terrible, terrible run there in Edmonton. The Not to plug another show, but Two and Out had a pretty good episode just talking about Jones with superfan Mike, which was worth a listen. Um, I don't know. So, what do you think, Joe? How would you? What are your thoughts on Jones? Because it's like we both feel his career is over. So.
Yeah, I don't think with the reputation he has around the league at this point, and the lack of results in the last two stops where he was the guy, because remember, he wanted to buy the groceries and cook at the same time, which we've gone over many, many times over the past few years and said that's not exactly the best idea. Like
Right.
in Saskatchewan, he had some nominal success. In Edmonton, he clearly didn't. His big success came with Ed Hervey as a GM. So
Right.
yeah, so he's not going to get another role where he's the guy.
Mhm.
Maybe somebody says, "Hey, you're a good coach, but you're not picking your players," and does he say yes? Maybe, but he's not going to get that full shot again.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, that was the thing. He won the Grey Cup, and then basically he had the trophy in his hands, and he's like, "I'm going to Saskatchewan."
He had one foot in Saskatchewan the entire Grey Cup week. I
Right.
remember the rumors flying around when I was in Winnipeg, and like he's leaving. Why?
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, he's going to get a lot of money and more power. Okay, that
Right.
makes sense.
Right. He's gonna get to drive the car. He's gonna get to buy the car and drive it. So yeah. So okay. Okay. Um, I guess I don't know. I guess he's willing to coach high school ball. Um, maybe he'll end up there. There's enough fly by night leagues these days, but he won't have time to be a GM in most of these leagues. Um, hmm. Wow,
I wonder
it's
if the Memphis Showboats are hiring.
yeah. The powerful, what is it? 8-team UFL. Wow.
I don't know.
These are
Maybe Ryan Messer will tell us.
the
'Cause
right.
I think Birmingham's doing okay last I checked.
Oh sure. Oh sure. Yeah. They always have good teams in this new iteration of the USFL, UFL, whatever. But let's not get onto that topic. Well, gee, it was certainly interesting, Mr. Jones. Um, Interesting run. Not so much in Edmonton, but elsewhere in the league while you were around. The thing about just wanted to get in one more thing. The thing about being a GM and a head coach is that maybe not 100% like it is in the NFL and the CFL, but those are two full time jobs, especially the way he played it in Saskatchewan. Because of course you remember those years were full of just this revolving doors. He's trying out 100 players during the season, at one point or another doing
And
this stuff.
sometimes even legally.
Right, right. But he was certainly taking that job very seriously. Whether he was doing it well ethically or professionally is the question. But I mean, he was certainly doing the job. And I guess his football suffered for it. I mean, here was another thing that Super Mike and the guys over there were talking about is that Again, this guy started as a defensive coordinator, right? So where has his defense been in Saskatchewan, in Edmonton on this second go around? It's never been there, right? His
Drew Brown
quarterbacks.
threw for 480 yards against
Oh
his
yeah.
defense this past week. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I like me some Drew Brown. Don't get me wrong. Drew Brown did some really nice things in Winnipeg, but he's a first-year starter in the league, and he's throwing for 480 yards against your defense. You done screwed up.
I was. They were doing this in the first quarter, okay, of this game. Let's just start with this game. We can go straight to that. The game of the week. The game of the week. The last game of the week, of course, was the Ottawa Edmonton game, which ended in disaster. During the first quarter of this game, okay, they did a couple of the things. Basically, you're rerunning every play, right? So they reran a couple of these plays when he's passing the ball, okay? And that thing is a duck. This is not a nice throw. This is not Mike Riley. This is nowhere near Vernon Adams, right? There's no form here on this ball, right? It is not coming out smooth. And yet, Edmonton is getting walked over by this guy. The fact that you have three receivers at 100 yards or more receiving, I mean, that's nuts. I hope you had these. I hope you had these Red Blacks receivers on your fantasy team this week. Did you, Joe?
I had one.
um, okay. What? Okay. How much of this loss and Edmonton this season do you put on the coaching? Okay.
Like all of it.
All of it.
What?
Okay.
Okay, not entirely all of it,
Okay.
but the offense balled out. They did what they had to do,
Right.
even with players. That final drive was not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh no.
You had players running the wrong routes. McLeod Bethel Thompson had to run for his life a few times.
Right.
Got some help on a pass interference.
Yes.
Uh, but
Yes.
yeah, even when they were succeeding in scoring, they weren't doing it right.
Right.
First and goal, you have 3 plays. You get to third down. Why the hell aren't you running the clock out?
That was so nuts.
There
That
was
was so nuts.
that was the worst game tying drive in the last minute of the game that I've ever seen in my life.
Uh-huh.
McLeod Bethel Thompson made 90% of it happen by sheer force of will.
Yep.
But they did
Yep.
everything they could in that last drive to give the game away, including, and Ben Grant did a great write up on this on Three Down Nation.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go into all the details, but you had the chance to run the clock out and give Ottawa
Yep.
no chance. Even if you decided to go to overtime, fine, that's your call. But
Right.
you're 0-4. Why the hell are you call it hoping for overtime when you better have
Okay.
one play in your basket
Okay. Yep.
for a 2-point
Okay.
conversion for the win? Every
Okay.
team should have at least 2 or 3 plays that they would rely on to get 3 yards when you have to have it. The lack of confidence they had that they could execute that, I'm going to put on the coaching.
Okay.
If you haven't coached that up well enough that you can go, that play is going to get me 3 yards, then you've done something wrong. The second is trying to play for a Rouge when there's like 7 seconds on the clock.
8. Yeah.
8 seconds on the clock? Still,
Right. Yeah. 8.
same idea. Because what incentives does Ottawa have to not get that out of there somehow? Even if somehow you bounce it over the guy's head, it takes a really strange hop, goes over his head, it's 15 yards deep, and your team is coming in, he can kick that ball right back out. Like,
Right.
if you really don't want
Right.
to have a point scored against you, you have options.
Uh-huh.
So why are you planning for that instead of trying to go for the win? Because you're scared? You're scared that you can't execute that 2-point play in the first place? So you've compounded your two mistakes already. And the third one is to let the same play that's been killing you all game kill you one more time. Like, how? That defense did Chris Jones no favors, and
Mhm.
Chris Jones did it no favors. After that game was over, I'm like, I don't see how he survives this, and I was right. Because it would have
I
been one thing. It would have been one thing if it was a fluke at the end of the game. Like, you have a kick, it it bounces around, and Devontae Dedmon decides to make 14 guys miss on the way to the end zone. A couple of them twice, of course. Fine, that happens. But you shouldn't have been kicking off in the first place. But like the sheer
right.
fact that they had one play from the 50-yard line because you screwed up so badly on your coaching that you got yourself into that situation,
Okay.
and then executed to put Louis Ward in chip shot range.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You gave it away at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Absolutely. I mean, you're okay. So now you're putting the game in the hands or the feet of basically your team's MVP for the last couple of seasons. It's just like tough call there. Tough call there.
Right.
I can't
And
believe
we
it.
and
And
we saw and we saw one of the biggest coaching blunders I have seen
okay.
in the Winnipeg game, where
Right.
O'Shea challenged and lost 2 yards because he won a challenge.
Right.
We saw that, and I thought that's going to be the worst coaching all week. No,
Oh.
like Jones is like, I'm not letting anybody have my title. Because it's one thing to make one dumb but like emotional decision.
right.
It's another to set up that whole stretch where you have a receiver not knowing which route to run, where you can't manage the clock, where you screw up a kickoff call, and then have your defense let the same thing happen that they've been letting happen all game. Like that's just
Well, yeah, but somehow,
that, you
okay.
have to try to be that bad.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah. It's just, well, see, okay, we're going to talk about that in just a minute because the margin of victory here, the difference between winning and losing for these guys this season is nuts. It's absolutely insane. Okay, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But I mean, that's the thing too. Okay, here it is. It's like, you've got your 8 seconds left or whatever. So the ball gets kicked out of bounds. They're starting at what, the 40 thereabouts, something crazy like this. Drew Brown is the quarterback. Okay, he finds who? Pimpleton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Who had? I hope you had him in fantasy. 0.3% of you that had this guy this week. All right. you know, finds this guy. And if you watch the replay, there's 4 dudes. There's 4 defenders that cross the path of this ball or this man somehow. And none of them lays a finger on it. How? How? I mean, that's just an incredibly just bad play. And again, Drew Brown almost went for 500. Come on now. Come on. Something is something is not right here. Now, here's the thing because okay, have you looked at the standings with regard to point differential?
No, haven't been paying that close of attention to that.
Okay, it's pretty wild right now because Edmonton, of course, is 0-5. Their point differential is minus 20. That's it. Saskatchewan is 4-1. Their point differential minus 19. Right? And that's after, no, I'm sorry, plus 19. And that's after the Lions blew them out. Well, beat them by 15. Okay. So it's just like, how, how are these point differentials so low? It's either a consequence, I figured, I guessed, it's either a consequence of lots of blowouts or lots of close games. Okay. So I went back because it seems like, okay, this week we had a couple of close ones. It seems like there always is, after week one, there always has been at least a couple of close games every week. Okay, so let me ask you this, Joe. What do you think? So far this season, we have had 10 games going by decided by 6 points or fewer. Okay. How do you think that compares on average?
Feels slightly above average, but not like ridiculously so.
Okay. Okay. Now we have finished 6 weeks. Okay. So that's about what, 30%? All right. How many close games, how many games of 6 points or fewer will we have by the end of the season?
It's not going to be 50%, I don't think.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Great. So I went back and I looked at previous years. It took me a little while to do it, so I didn't go beyond COVID. Besides, everything has been different since then anyway. So I only did the last few years. But believe it or not, this is actually right around the same pace it usually is. The anomaly was last season. Now, I don't know if you remember last season, but about this point in the season, we had proclaimed no lead is safe to be dead, right? At this point last season, there was only 5 games that had been this close this early in the season. All right. Okay. Including, and one of those games was that crazy 12-11 game, the Rouge Bowl game between Saskatchewan and Edmonton that year. But in that season, there were still 20 such games through the whole year. Okay. And in 2022, same situation as this year. 10 games this close after week 6. That's and they had 22 in the full regular season. And then finally we had 2021, shorter season. But after week 6, we had 9. 9 games that had been this close after week 6. And we ultimately ended up with 15 such games in the 16-week season. So that works out to about, guess what? 19 close games in the season. So I would say this. This is a pretty representative season, although it seems a lot of these games seem a lot closer than this. I should have counted 7-point games as well. But we can only expect about 10 more of these. I think if the pattern holds, there's going to be a lot of blowouts in this last 2/3 of the season. So I did a little bit of jerking around with numbers this week, Joe. Uh, this is what I did instead of building a successful fantasy team.
Well, you had
I
to be doing something.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. At least it was CFL related. I'm sure I'll be grousing about my fantasy team later. Right now, perhaps I should grouse about the game that opened up the week. Toronto Argonauts 31, Montreal Alouettes 18. Gee, Joe, what did you come away with in this game?
that quarterback injuries always seem to um, confuse even the best of us.
Uh-huh.
Like
Uh-huh.
we do all this work in trying to make successful picks.
Oh yeah.
We follow everything. We talk it all over, and you just can't predict Cody Fajardo leaving at the end of the first quarter and not coming
Yeah.
back, can you?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. Quarterback or even like star player injury combine or snow, right? When
Ooh, I
one of
like
those
snow.
yeah, when one of those two things happens, just throw away the predictions, throw away the playbook, forget it. Forget it. Now it's gambling. Now it's random. Now it's you have no idea what happens next. You were not ready for this eventuality, and I don't think the Alouettes were in this game either. They're just not ready for
No,
this.
they're
No.
actually, when you think about it, they're in a terrible position with their backup quarterback situation.
Yes.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I tend to agree. Caleb Evans has not been awesome this season. We saw him in the preseason. We've seen him in a few games this year doing some things. Again, wasn't too great in this game. 12 completions for 122 yards. And yeah, he did have the touchdown passes, but those two bad interceptions. The one play, the one, short little pick six. Maybe that should be a pick 5.5 or something. That and the Janarian Grant return touchdown was enough to kill us.
Well,
That
I
was
mean,
enough.
that you
That was
could
enough.
predict. It's going to happen.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. The throwing the interception from the end zone, from your own end zone, is not yeah, not the best situation to be in. And the really crazy thing, the really unfortunate thing about this game was they never had a run game. The Owls never generated a run game. They had two true running backs. Okay, 6 carries for what, 60 yards, all by Walter Fletcher. No other proper running backs are carrying the ball, and one of those carries was the 50-yarder. So it's like, wow, no offense whatsoever. No offense whatsoever. And yeah, okay, the defense got outscored 13-3 in the second half. But
So what? You put the ball in
13,
Caleb Eva's hands for 3 quarters and don't try to run the ball with it. You're getting what you deserve in that
yeah,
case.
yeah. Well, I think Evans had like 4 runs, I think, but none of them were very productive. That's supposed to be his bread and butter, but there wasn't much of it in this game. So I don't know. The streak is over. The streak of 13 wins is over. I'm trying to be optimistic here. We're still 1-1 with the Argos. We're still the defending champs. We're still a game and a half up or 4 points up on the table. I'm not panicking yet. And
Nope.
and and
Right now is the time you just sit there and go, okay, game on. Let's keep it moving.
well, let's hey, we're just thinking about the bye. I am I don't I don't want to hear anything about Cody Fajardo and the state of his injury. I don't want to hear anything about this. I'm going to ignore it all through the bye. I'm not even going to listen to it. I'm not even going to. Nope. Nope. Not
If
at all.
he's hurt, call Edmonton.
Okay. So, how about this one, Joe? How'd you like Winnipeg Blue Bombers 41, Calgary Stampeders 37?
That
How
was
about this
nuts.
game? Yeah. Game of the week? Game of the year? Game of the year?
So far,
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. Um, Impressions? What'd you come
it's
away with in
really
this
nice to see the offense moving the ball again.
game?
It's really nice to see Zach Claros making passes again. And it's really nice to see the ball getting spread around a little bit more. Now, they clearly game plan to get Ontario Smith involved, and that they did. But you couldn't just sit there and go, okay, here's the 2 receivers he's going to throw to. No, there's more like 4, which
Yeah.
makes it little bit harder to play defense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Um, how about Ontario? How about that? The rookie wide receiver on Winnipeg. Was he actually a draft pick this year?
No,
He's not, right? He's
he played for
American.
Florida State, so
Yeah, 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 yeah. 13 catches, 201 yards, and a touchdown. Hope you had him in fantasy.
I did in
Again,
week 1.
so yeah, great. Excellent timing. Excellent
Yes.
timing. Your week 1 was not very good.
No, it wasn't.
I
Ever since then, though, it's been fine.
yeah, yeah. You've been bizarro me this season. I don't know. I thought, how does Calgary keep looking pretty good in these losses? Again, Calgary, I
It's
think,
weird. It's
yeah,
really weird. The last 2 years, they've been better than their record says they are, it feels like to me, but they can't finish.
mm-hmm,
6-12 last year, and only because they were able to push a couple wins across the board late did they make the playoffs.
mm-hmm,
And then this year started off pretty well, and now they're making one too many mistakes again.
mm-hmm.
The pick six by Deatrick Nichols, you could very, very easily say was the backbreaker. But then Calgary came back and scored 2 touchdowns like back to back and got the lead back.
Right, right,
What I
right.
liked was that Winnipeg showed some killer instinct at the end of the game. A
Mm-hmm.
couple of gambles, a couple of
Yeah.
okay, you got the ball deep in your own territory. If you're punting, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm,
Made a couple of ballsy plays to get first downs and put the game away. And got Brady Oliveira involved. That
yep.
felt like last year's team again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Minus the fact that the defense gave out 37 points.
mm-hmm.
That's not
Right.
that's not the defense was trying to carry the team early in the season. So I can't be too upset, but
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
yeah, that's not how the Bombers win games. It's by
mm-hmm.
giving up 37 points.
Well, yeah, but it's nice when you could score 41.
Yes, you'll take it, but then you're like, okay, wow, what do we do to fix this? Like
Mm-hmm,
I feel like I've been seeing the defensive collapse come on for the past like month because of the lack of the pass rush. But this week was case in point. I
mm-hmm.
think the maybe 1 or 2 sacks the whole game, and one of them was late and really helped.
Right,
Mhm.
right, 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 right.
That was Jake
Yeah.
Thomas just taking his guy and shoving him back into
Yes.
the quarterback, which is
Right.
great. I'll take that. We need somebody to make some pressure somewhere.
Yeah, that was nice. That was nice. Um, yeah, giving up the 37 points to Jake Meyer. And I'll tell you what, early on, Joe, I was thinking about what you had said during the previous show, which was, and I quote, nobody is afraid of Jake Meyer. Right. And so sure enough, the first time he opens it up, right, he just unloads one into triple coverage. And Terrell Ford takes it away. It's like, it was it was fantastic, and at that point I thought that yeah, okay, Winnipeg's going to start running up the score a little bit here, but nope,
No, but the
nope.
Bombers can't stop the run.
Yep. Oh yeah, Mills was a beast.
Hmm.
Mills was a beast. Now Mills, there's a fantasy guy that you might actually have had on your team if you're a normal human being. Um, I bet I know at least one team that had him starting this week. Right. So yeah, the run game for Calgary was fantastic. Really like that. Um, what is it going to take to replace Meyer? The end of his contract? I mean, will they just re-up him?
I
I mean, is
felt like he's looked a little bit better this year, but not as good as he did in 21.
yeah.
I've actually had a couple of 21 games on in the background lately because I've been kind of trying to piece together. Okay, what we've seen the Bombers be dominant for 3 years. Like, what
Uh,
was the cause? And something I didn't remember too well was that in 21 the offense was slow out of the gate and the defense
yeah,
was just killing people.
yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. At that
I
point,
miss
that was the yeah,
that.
that was the point in the season. Yeah, that was the point in the season where it was the situation where, kind of like this year with the Alouettes, is that the defense, Winnipeg's defense, was ready to play from week one after that COVID business, right? After the canceled season, without the preseason, Winnipeg defense was the best unit in the league. First half of the season, really, for the first 7 weeks or so, they were the best outfit out there. So, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that. That was nice. That was probably the best team you've had on this run, right? 2021, 21 Bombers.
I would say that's a fair statement.
Yeah, yeah.
Because what, one regular season loss that was early on to Toronto,
Right, right, right.
and then they didn't lose a game that mattered again
Yeah.
because they were 11-1 and took the foot off the gas.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yep, yep. Yeah, nice team. Nice team. Maybe they're back. Maybe they're back. But again, I just don't think Calgary's going anywhere. I just wanted to give a few shout outs. It was pretty nice because right at the beginning of the game, they started talking about Eric Smith, who was getting his first start in the CFL on that left side of the line. And sure enough, on the first big run by Mills, he was throwing the key block and making that gap for him. So nice to see him. We already talked about Ontario Smith. Um, oh yeah, and for Calgary, how about Eric Brooks? I bet you didn't have him in fantasy.
No,
this was this was his third reception of the year, probably his career. I believe he's a rookie, and yeah, he scored a touchdown for the Stamps. So nice to see some new faces, some young guys get some camera time, get some nice highlights for the film roll, etc., etc. So good for them. Good for them. All right. So um, I, in one of my better predictions, I figured that the Lions would win by double figures against Saskatchewan. It was a little bit more of a chore than I expected it to be. Um, but I don't know. Is there any doubt to you that BC was BC ever threatened in this game? In your
no,
view?
I don't think so.
Okay. Now, to what do put that feeling? Like why do you say that?
It was just they were in control the whole game and finished
Right.
well, which is what I've been
Right.
asking them to do for like the last 3 weeks. Like, that was the kind of game I expect out of BC. If BC wants to be the beast out west, that's what they got to do,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and they did it. And against an
Okay.
opponent that's up there in the standings board with them too. So
Right.
that was an important statement game for them.
Right. 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 I don't know. I didn't, all things considered, I didn't think that the Saskatchewan defense was that bad. I could say that
They
too.
weren't getting they weren't getting torched, but
Right.
BC was
Right.
doing what they needed to do too.
Right. Well, I mean, they did get to Vernon, what, 4 times as well. Now, aside from that opener against Toronto, Vernon has only taken like 2 sacks this whole season. They're both in week 5. What is that, against Calgary, I believe? He took a couple then too, but they hit him 4 times in this game, so that's pretty good. They got a couple of picks. That's above average this year for Vernon. So I thought that the defense was pretty good. I just felt bad for them because their offense is just blah. It's just
Yeah,
without
and they're missing Trevor Harris, so
yeah,
I mean, Shea
just
Patterson
flat.
hasn't been awful,
No,
but that's what's gonna happen when you're starting games for the first time in the league. You're gonna have
yeah,
games where you just don't have it.
yeah, yeah. It's just flat. It's just flat. It doesn't have the punch like was so obvious at the beginning of the season. Oh, and of course, the long term implication for this, apparently, as it turns out today, is that Jamarcus Hardrick, guy who played on all those Winnipeg championship teams, went out in this game, and he reportedly is out for the quote unquote long term.
Yep,
So I assume that's the season for Saskatchewan. That
that is
can't
close anyway.
right. That won't happen. That won't hurt. That won't help the offense too much either. So
No,
yeah, to lose your all-star lineman like that. So that's the wrap on week 6. Any overarching thoughts here? Are we do you feel, are you more impressed by Toronto? Are you more impressed by Calgary? Are you more, what's up with Saskatchewan? Will they plummet?
I don't know if Saskatchewan's gonna plummet, at least right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
A few more. It sounds like Trevor Harris is getting back on the mend. Things are going well there. A couple more weeks of Shea Patterson, and we'll see. Um, I don't think they're in deep trouble or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
but it's not going to help them going into this week, not having Harris around. Um, liked how BC finished.
Hmm.
It felt like they took control.
Hmm.
And Edmonton made a change that they needed to make for a while, and this game just made it abundantly clear it couldn't go on.
Yeah, yeah. We're back to Jones, huh?
No,
So,
that's just it. That's that's what this week told me. It's like, okay, these are the big things we
yeah,
need to know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well put. Well put. Okay, so I believe I have the ad read here. Oh, I do not. So, but I can probably do this right off the top of my head. Before we talk about next week's games, before I complain about my fantasy team, probably, maybe not, uh, like to give a plug, shout out to our sponsor, RoyalRetros.com. RoyalRetros.com is a gear and paraphernalia shop specializing in defunct teams, defunct leagues, leagues like the WHA, the AFL, the Negro League Baseball, and Pacific Coast League Baseball franchises, the ABA. Lots of leagues like that, lots of interesting teams, lots of interesting gear. If you go there now and enter the promo code RWBCFL, on checkout, you can get 10% off. That's their thank you to you for listening to the show. RoyalRetros.com, RWBCFL for 10% off. Okay, Joe. Um, the first question is, how happy am I that the Owls get the bye week this week?
You need it.
Right. I am thrilled. I am very, very happy to get the bye this week. All right. So here we go. The lines are going to be interesting for this one. The picks are going to be interesting for this one. And I'll tell you right now, I'm picking a lot of upsets. I think this is going to be the week. I think things get shaken up this week. All right. So, interestingly enough, Edmonton, 2.5 point underdogs at Ottawa. All right. The coaching change. Often, if the coach has not been doing a good job, if the coach is not well liked by his players, that first game after he leaves is a W. The only problem is Saskatchewan's getting like what, 4 days between games? So, how quickly can this be strung together? Nevertheless, I'm going to go with the optimism card here. I'm going to say that some of that, hopefully, some of those mental mistakes, some of those game call decisions will get tossed out the window. We'll have more positivity. Edmonton is losing these games on walk-off field goals, right? They only have to get and hold the fourth quarter lead. That's all they have to do to win one of these games. I'm going to take Edmonton. I'll take
Oh,
Edmonton plus the points. I'll take them to win.
okay. I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Okay.
So I agree with your premise that a team coming off of a coaching change tends to have like a game or two where like they go
Okay.
nuts.
Yep.
The two things mitigating against that, in my mind, A, the quick turnaround. You're going from
Right.
Sunday to Friday,
Right.
and you're traveling. I mean, Ottawa's
Okay.
doing the same
Right.
thing because it's a rematch.
Right.
So quick turnaround, but at least they did their traveling on what Sunday night. They're
Right.
home and rested,
Right. At least they didn't fire their coach.
and they didn't fire their coach. Things are going well in Ottawa. They don't really have to change a whole lot in their game plan. Edmonton needs
Okay.
to make drastic changes to their defensive game plan, and they don't have time to do that. You're still having the offense called by the same guy. You still got the same defensive coaches. I don't I don't see how they stop Ottawa's offense because their defense just didn't know how to do it the first time. So why are they going to all of a sudden know how to 4 days later on the road?
Ottawa won by 3 points. you
Ottawa
know,
also put up like scads of yards.
right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Drew Brown threw for 480 yards, and they still won by 3 points.
Right.
Okay. I don't know. Will that
And now
first
they're
thing
and now
happen
they're at
again?
home and they're not traveling.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Like all
Maybe.
the cards are playing that have been played over this
Uh-huh.
past week tend to fall in their favor.
I just, it's a very strange world
Yeah, and
when,
this is I will make this prediction. This game's not going to be within 10 points, either team. So if you're right, Edmonton just comes out and just shellacks Ottawa because
oh,
they're
so you think this is going to be a
passive.
blowout?
It's going to be
Okay.
a blowout either way.
Wow.
If you're right, they come out and just like go gangbusters, and Ottawa has nothing to stop them with.
Wow. Okay.
If Ottawa wins, it's because they've put up 600 yards passing or
Okay.
something of the sort. Edmonton's just shell shocked.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's wow. What an interesting call. Okay. All right. I don't know. It's a strange world we live in because after this week, we could conceivably have Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa all tied in the win column. That's really, really, really.
And that's so good to have Ottawa have something to get behind. I'm all for it.
Yeah. 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 Hopefully, if
Even
they could.
just a brief flicker of, hey, we have respectability back is going to help so much.
Well, I mean, look, here's what it's going to help. It's going to help their chances of preventing the crossover, right? The more of the wins that they can stack up now, the more of an edge that they have on that number 3 in the East spot. I mean, because it seems like Toronto, Montreal are going to be 1-2 in some combination.
It seems
So,
rational, yes.
yeah, I feel like they're fighting against, maybe Calgary. I feel
That
like
feels
is
that feels right too.
yeah, as their playoff race, or maybe even Saskatchewan again if they fall off the table again. Um, one of those two teams. So I feel like that's who they're really competing with, getting these early wins. Because I don't think they're going to beat Toronto and Montreal late in the season. I don't think that's going to happen. So they might as well rack up these wins now. So anyway, that would be a great win for Ottawa this week. That would really make them. Their record looks great. They win this one. So okay, here we have. I like this line too. Is it already time for the Banjo Bowl, Joe? Time
No,
is flying.
it's just a preview.
Okay. Winnipeg 3.5 point favorites at Saskatchewan. And I think Winnipeg's going to win handily, Joe. Winnipeg's trending up. Saskatchewan's trending down. I Again, you said it. This is more and more resembling Winnipeg of old. By old, I mean like last year and the previous few years. Um, yeah, yeah. No, I like Winnipeg by a lot in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe not by the a lot thing, but I feel like the offense is finally starting to click. I think the defense is going to have a rebound game. I don't think Shea Patterson. If Trevor Harris is in there, maybe I have feel differently, but I don't know if Shea Patterson is going to have the ability
Mhm.
to rally the troops on this one.
Yeah, yeah. I think this could be a good old fashioned stifling defense game after that 37-point game. I think this
Yeah, they're
could
going to
be.
have something to prove again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this could be. Saskatchewan has about 15 points maybe in this game. Um, Possibly. Okay, Toronto. Toronto at Hamilton. Okay, Toronto is the favorite. What do you think the line is on this? This is pretty wild.
Toronto's a 7-point favorite. It's my guess.
Okay, Toronto is a 3-point favorite.
Okay.
And this is one of those lines where you're just going, why? Why? What do they know that I don't know? And, I'm going to get nuts here. I'm going to get nuts because I could use some wins on my pick'em card.
Don't do
So
it.
I'm taking Hamilton. No, I'm going to take Hamilton. Coming out of the bye. Look, Hamilton's not going to go 0-18, right? They're not.
No, they get to
They're
play
not.
Edmonton.
Yeah, okay, but Edmonton's
Hmm.
not going to go 0-18 either. Right?
No, they'll
And
split.
you've
They'll be 1
and
and
you've got
17
the
together. No, I'm kidding.
well,
They'll
that would
probably both
certainly
end up with at least 3.
that would almost make possible 7 teams with winning records if 2 teams were 1-17. Wow. Um,
Given
yeah,
it's only happened one time in history, I'm going to bet against that.
yeah. So, Hamilton's going to come up with some shockers somewhere. What the hell? That's why they call it gambling. So, I'm going to take my chances here. I'm going to say, okay, they're coming out of the bye. Uh, Toronto, maybe, I don't know. How can I justify this? Maybe they're feeling overconfident after taking care of weakened Montreal. I don't know. Okay. In your estimation, then, I guess you're taking Toronto.
Mhm.
Is Toronto, what's up with this -3? Is that a reasonable point spread?
Maybe. It doesn't show a lot of faith in Toronto's offense. That's what that's
Yeah.
telling me.
Yep. 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 It's Hamilton with the famous no pressure defense. They clearly don't have confidence in the Toronto offense. I should have looked at the over under on that game too. I wonder how many points they think. Okay, last one. BC, 4.5 point favorites at Calgary.
I have BC.
Okay. All right. Great. Wow. All right. Not quite a sweep. Almost a sweep. Maybe I should switch to Saskatchewan. I'll take Calgary. I'll take Calgary in this game.
Okay.
Calgary keeps losing these hard fought games, these differently styled games. They play smart, and I think that if I have Saskatchewan losing this week, I can afford to have BC losing this week as well. Right? Then they're still 1-2 on the table. BC's still in top spot. So I think that's a realistic outcome, just in terms of standing. And again, I like the way Calgary's playing. They've got to win one of these, right? I mean, the bounce has got to go their way at some point, right? I mean, again,
You
this
can
team.
say the same thing about Edmonton, though, too.
Well, yeah, but
But a lot of that's self-inflicted on Edmonton's part, whereas
right,
Calgary,
right.
still a little bit of self-inflictedness, but not as much.
Some, I mean, like again, Meyer got kooky a couple of times in that last game, made throws that he shouldn't have. Not a good decision there. But in general, teams like Calgary, teams like Ottawa are not playing dumb. They're playing smart football. Edmonton is not playing smart football. I mean, I had this down here. Um, just as one of the notes from the game. Javon Leake, right, on the fumble, right? He's carrying that thing super loosely, right? He doesn't even have the proper hold on it, right? Okay, they knock it, they fumble it away. Clearly, Ottawa recovers the fumble, right? Number 68. I looked up. Oh, Foucault, David Foucault, right, for Edmonton. The play is long dead. He just sees an Ottawa player and just picks him up and throws him aside. It's like, okay, it's probably fun to do that if you're that much bigger than the other guy, right? But that's just a dumb penalty. It was a dumb fumble, and it was a dumb penalty after that. You don't see Calgary doing things like that. You
No,
just don't.
no,
You
you
just
sure
don't.
don't.
And that's why I say they should be winning one of these games. I mean, again, like you talk about Edmonton with their minus 20 point differential. Calgary's is like minus 9. you know, I mean, and okay, they're only 2-3, but I feel like a couple of bounces and they're much higher on the table than they are right now. So I think Calgary's got to win one of these. So I'm going to take Calgary here as well. Um, yeah, I've got to have at least two home teams. So I'll go with Calgary and Hamilton in the big upsets of the week. I'll tell you what, if I bet those and win, that'll be a nice payout on some of these.
I'm sure it would be.
Hamilton is probably paying really well. All right, great. Well, that's it for the Rouge, White, and Blue this week. Any grand unifying theories you'd like to share with us, Joe?
That it's still fun, and that's why we keep doing it. That's about as far as I've got. If we
All
can
right.
make sense of this, we'd have done it a long time ago.
Okay. All right. I buy that. I buy that. And with those words of wisdom from my co-host Joe Pritchard, I'm Oz Davis signing off for the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast, a Shotgun Sports Network production. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the games.